I am Dr. Soumyaranjan Tripathi, Assistant Professor, Department of Rheumatology at SCB Medical College, Cuttack. I have been assigned to talk on tocilizumab in COVID-19 management. The outline of my talk will go through the following phases: COVID-19 and IL-6, what is tocilizumab, does tocilizumab work in COVID, we will analyze the evidence that we have, what are the recommendations, what are the precautions, go through some real life case scenarios, and finally the take home message. As you can see in this diagram, the SARS-CoV-2 virus first enters the lungs, as you can see in the leftmost panel, through ACE2 receptors and TMP RSS2 receptors. After it enters, the body mounts an immunological response, and you can see that it is again divided into two parts, the early phase and late phase. In this phase, in 90% of the people, the virus will be cleared from the lungs and the person recovers. But in 5 to 10% of unfortunate population, after the virus has cleared, there is an hyperimmune response, and this hyperimmune response shifts the patient from a physiological host response to a pathogenic host response. As you can see in the right hand panel, there is a first phase of cytokine storm, and which progresses to organ failure. In this cytokine storm, as you can see in the yellow box, there is a plethora of cytokines. There is a complex interplay of interleukin 6, interleukin 10, TNF alpha, interferon gamma. But interleukin 6 is an important key player in this cytokine storm. Interleukin 6 is not only active in COVID, but it is a physiological cytokine which is present in normal individuals also. It is an pleiotropic inflammatory cytokine. By pleiotropic, we mean that it comes from various sources such as activated T cells, fibroblasts, monocytes, endothelial cells, and macrophages. And why does it come? Whenever the body is subjected to a danger like an external infection or a malignancy, then the body mounts an inflammation by increasing interleukin 6. This interleukin 6 stimulates B cell and T cell proliferation, it increases the leukocyte count, it stimulates the innate and adaptive response, and thereby protecting the body from harmful infections and internal malignancies. But in case of COVID, whenever there is excess of interleukin 6, after killing the virus, this leads to a cytokine storm and the late phase complications of COVID. As you can see in the diagram, the interleukin 6 first starts in the lungs, secreted by the alveolar macrophages and local dendritic cells. But once it leaks from the central pulmonary circulation to external circulation, it causes a cytokine storm and leads to the deadly and mortality causing complication of ARDS, that is acute respiratory distress syndrome. So now with the hypothesis that interleukin 6 is causing cytokine storm and lung damage, as you can see in the top panel, scientists and doctors everywhere in the world thought that we have a hypothesis. If we block the IL-6, we can prevent the cytokine storm and thereby prevent the lung damage, which you can see in the lower panel. Now that interleukin 6 has to be blocked, it was searched who are the best interleukin 6 blockers in the market. And tocilizumab, it is not a new drug. It is with rheumatologists from 2010 when it was first approved for rheumatoid arthritis. Subsequently, it was approved in systemic onset GIA, giant cell arteritis. And this is an anti-human IL-6 receptor inhibitor. It was also used in cytokine release storm after CAR T cell therapy. Now let us know a little bit about CAR T cell therapy. CAR T cell therapy is a modified antigen response T cell therapy against malignant cells. Now the specific T cells, when they attack malignant cells, the dead malignant cells release lot of cytokines, and this cytokine storm was well treated with tocilizumab. So they thought that if a cytokine storm is treated with tocilizumab, why not try it in cytokine storm of COVID? Now how does tocilizumab act? As you can see, there are two different types of receptors. One is a transmembrane receptor, which is bound to GP130, you can see in the diagram. There is a soluble IL-6 receptor. Now tocilizumab binds with both soluble IL-6 receptor and the transmembrane receptors, and doing so, it prevents the binding of IL-6 with IL-6 receptor, and therefore tocilizumab blocks the harmful effects of IL-6. Now that we know that in the bench side we know that IL-6 is blocked by tocilizumab, Whether it is actually beneficial at the bedside by reducing mortality is the big question. Now, let us analyze the evidence. In this meta-analysis of the known 8 trials which were done till before May 2021, it was seen that in the meta-analysis, the net result was tocilizumab was neither beneficial nor harmful. As you can see in the central picture, the magic line is 1. Any line which remains completely to the left of 1, it is tocilizumab better. Any line which is beyond the right hand side, it is worse. But any line which crosses the magic line of 1, it is statistically insignificant. So, from the meta-analysis of these 8 trials, except for REMAP-CAP, there was no additional benefit of adding tocilizumab to the standard care. Now, in 2021, by the early May, a new trial came up which is called as the recovery trial. This trial included 2022 patients who were given tocilizumab, and in summation the 8 earlier trials had only 1337. So, this mega trial had more patients compared to the 8 trials compared, and in this mega trial they showed that there is an absolute mortality benefit of 4% compared to standard care, and this impact was so high that the meta-analysis done after the recovery trial showed that there is a marginal benefit of giving tocilizumab in preventing mortality in patients with COVID. Now, let us understand what was the basic differences in the REMAP-CAP trial and the recovery trial, so that we can understand what these two trials had in difference that caused an impact on the mortality benefit. In the REMAP-CAP trial, the key inclusion criteria which was different from other trials was they took only critically ill patients admitted to the ICU and receiving respiratory or cardiovascular organ support, and they excluded any patient who had spent more than 24 hours since admission to ICU. So, the key point here is you have to give tocilizumab early in the course of severe disease. Beyond 24 hours, it may not be effective as per the REMAP-CAP trial. In the recovery trial, the two important inclusion criteria was SpO2 less than 92, that means the person has to be having severe COVID, and the CRP was more than 75, which means that the person should be having hyperinflammation, that is the cytokine storm must be ongoing which is causing raised CRP levels. The exclusion criteria, which is very important, there should be no evidence of any SARS-CoV-2 viral infection, no tuberculosis, no bacterial, fungal or other viral infections. This has to be kept in mind because any patient who is given tocilizumab in the presence of infection is at high risk of mortality due to sepsis. In the recovery trial, we have already shown you that there was a 4% absolute mortality benefit compared 28 days, whereas in the 35% death in the usual care group, there was 31% death in the tocilizumab group. The median time to getting discharged from the hospital was also lower in the tocilizumab group. Compared to more than 28 days for the standard of care, the tocilizumab group patients were discharged at a median time of 19 days. You can see in the below numbers also that those patients who did not or were not on mechanical ventilation at the time of recruitment into the trial, the number of patients who required mechanical ventilation was also less, 15% compared to 19%, and the death was again 28% versus 32. So, patients who were not on mechanical ventilator at the time of receiving tocilizumab, they also did better with tocilizumab compared to standard of care. Now, what recovery trial did which other trials have not done was a sub-analysis to decide which parameters determine whether a person is going to benefit from tocilizumab or not. That is, they identify the key population where you should give tocilizumab and where you should not give tocilizumab. They saw that if patients were given tocilizumab less than 7 days, or if the patient was not on ventilatory support or was on maximum non-invasive ventilation and administration of co-steroids, that is dexamethasone IV 6 milligrams OD. The red population was the only population which showed statistical significance. If the person was beyond 7 days of onset of severe symptoms, if the person was on invasive mechanical ventilation, or if the person was not receiving co-administration of steroids, he was unlikely or she was unlikely to benefit from the administration of tocilizumab. Based on these two trials, our national guidelines have come up from AIMS and ICMR, and the criteria as goes as below. All of the following criteria must be fulfilled. Number 1, the presence of severe disease, preferably within 24 to 48 hours of onset of severe disease or ICU admission. This comes from the REMAP-CAP trial. Significantly raised inflammatory markers, CRP and or IL-6. This comes from the recovery trial. I would like to add on here that IL-6 is a very dicey and non-standardized test, so it is best to rely on CRP only. Not improving despite use of steroids over the 24 to 48 hours. And again, this is the last but most important point, no active bacterial, fungal, tubercular infection. And the recommended dose is single dose 4 to 6 milligram per kg, 400 milligrams in 60 kg adult, diluted in 100 ml NS, to be given over 1 hour. Now let us also have a look at the international guidelines from NIH. Here they have further defined the severity of illness. They have said if the person is in ICU, the oxygen requirement should be more than 0.4 FiO2, that is 40% FiO2, more than 30 liters per minute of oxygen flow. And if the person is not in ICU, there should be a gradual increasing oxygen demand. The person must be requiring NIV or high flow nasal cannula, and the CRP must be more than 75. To translate this CRP into our local parlance, what we can say, if the CRP is more than 10 times the cutoff of upper normal limit, then that indicates hyperinflammation and is one of the criteria for giving tocilizumab. For hospitalized patients with hypoxemia who do not require NIV, HFNC or mechanical ventilation, there is insufficient evidence to give tocilizumab. Now this slide is the most important slide of my presentation, that is where not to give tocilizumab. If you have used any other biologic immunomodulating drugs, if your liver enzymes are more than 5 times the upper limit of normal, if you have risk of GI perforation like IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, or history of diverticulosis, or history of gastric ulcers, or presence of infections, bacterial, fungal, tubercular or non-SARS-CoV-2, if your neutrophil count is less than 500, if your platelet count is less than 50,000, or if the person has received tocilizumab in the past with a definite history of hypersensitivity. These are the contraindications and increase the mortality with tocilizumab. Now the NIH has also given additional considerations. This is a repetition but very important. Co-administration of IV dexamethasone 6 milligram. Insufficient data to indicate a second or third dose of tocilizumab. Remember, only single dose. And in endemic countries, in some parts of India, we have strongyloidiasis. So there you can co-administer ivermectin. So now we will go to real life case scenarios. These are based on the requisitions for tocilizumab that we have received already and which have been processed. The first scenario is a 37-year-old male with fever for last 10 days, dyspnea on day 7 of illness, the saturation was 91%, respiratory rate was 28, given injection methylpred, which is a steroid 40 mg twice daily. But despite steroids, on day 10 the person was in ICU on NIV, FiO2 50%, oxygen flow rate 30 liters, and now he was maintaining 90 to 94% saturation. The reports show leukocytosis, neutrophilia, platelets normal, hyperinflammation in the form of CRP, and serum procalcitonin, which is marker of bacterial infection, was 0.1 nanogram per ml, and liver enzymes was borderline. So whether we should give tocilizumab in this case scenario or not. So the person has severe disease which we have qualified by the SpO2. There is an increasing oxygen demand despite giving steroids. There is a hyperinflammatory state marked by CRP, normal procal. Therefore, this person is the ideal candidate for benefiting from tocilizumab, and this is your template where you will send requisitions for tocilizumab. A 64-year-old male lab confirmed COVID positive case on mechanical ventilator for last 5 days. Despite injection dexamethasone 6 milligrams for last 7 days, the person was continuing to have fever. The SpO2 was worsening. Now it was 89% despite 100% FiO2. There was leukocytosis 20,000, neutrophilia 90%, CRP was 100. So now the question is this person eligible for tocilizumab? Most persons will say yes, but here the missing link is serum procalcitonin. Serum procalcitonin is a sensitive marker for bacterial and fungal infections. If your serum procalcitonin is raised, which is more than 0.5, then do not think of tocilizumab, because beyond 0.5 this is a marker for serious bacterial infections, and in this patient the serum procalcitonin came out to be 5. So, the diagnosis here is a bacterial sepsis, most commonly ventilator associated pneumonia. Therefore, this person requires good antibiotic coverage based on cultures, and tocilizumab should never be given here. The final case scenario, a 57-year-old male with fever for 8 days, breathlessness for last 4 days, on ICU again with SpO to 91%, FiO to 60%. Person is receiving methylprednisolone 40 mg IV thrice daily. He is already on baricitinib for last 3 days, which is another common drug which is being practiced without the proper approvals. His current reports are TLC 11,000, neutrophil 89%, platelets 4 lakh, liver enzymes are 2 times raised 100, CRP is 41, procal is negative. Now, whether he is eligible for tocilizumab. Now, the person might say that hyperinflammation, CRP is 41, procal is negative, no bacterial infection, so should we give tocilizumab? The answer is again no. This person has received baricitinib. Baricitinib is a JAK kinase inhibitor which prevents the signaling, cell signaling downstream of IL-6 receptor. Now, if you have given baricitinib, the person is already immunosuppressed. If you give another immunosuppressant in the form of tocilizumab, there will be profound immunosuppression, increased risk of sepsis, including fungal infections, and the recent that we know that mucormycosis is coming up in a big way. So, we are putting a patient at grave danger if you give too big immunosuppressants. So, do not give tocilizumab in any patient who has received other immunosuppressants like baricitinib. So, the take home message is tocilizumab is only helpful in specific situations, less than 7 days of disease severity, on patients on NIV or high flow nasal cannula oxygen, and co-administration of steroids. Do not use if the person is already on mechanical ventilation, beyond 7 days of disease severity, and if steroids are not co-administered. It is useful only in the early phase of severe COVID, like I have said. The dose is single dose, 4 to 6 mg per kg diluted in 100 ml NS over 1 hour. Always give dexamethasone IV 6 mg OD along with tocilizumab. Be super careful to rule out infections pre and post infusion of tocilizumab, and do not forget to look at the cell counts, the neutrophil counts, the leukocytes, the platelets. Another important clue here is if we have high TLC, look for toxic granules and left shift. If toxic granules and left shift are present in the peripheral smear, then it is an indicator of infection. So, use tocilizumab in specific situations. There is a high chance that a patient will benefit. Use it in indications other than given by the national and international guidelines. It is not likely to benefit. So, be careful while selecting tocilizumab for COVID-19 management. Thank you.